nothing for you.
I would
They're
ask,
your slaves.
where's the other half? Where's the other half?
Well, that's unfortunately.
You only got half. Where's the other half, dude?
It was transaction cost.
The full amount. Oh, transaction cost. God.
Yeah. Lawyers, how it works.
Now I know where the other half went, at least. We got to get paid, dude. So
yeah, you have good lawyers in Canada, and you have good lawyers in Poland.
Let me tell you a legal joke now that he's here. Okay, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so somebody asked me, because I've been practicing law for years, and they go, "What do you charge?" I said, "Well," the guy goes, "I only have a couple questions." I said, "Look, I charge $500 for a question," and they go, $500 per question, that's pretty expensive. I said, "Yes, and what's your other question?" And that's how lawyers make money.
Hey, but it must have been 30 years ago, because I don't think that you charge now $500 an hour.
$500 an hour. Yeah, that's basically rack rate right now, in case you guys don't know, for legal time in the U.S. You didn't know that.
$500
an hour. Hello.
An hour.
Hello. Yeah, you want to see my contracts? These guys pay me. I'll show you. Because I have my retainers out. So when Kim goes, "Hey, you want to be on the TV?" I go, "Hey, look, I'm pretty expensive labor. You don't really want me on television." So at $500 an hour, this is a lot of legal time. But see, this is legal work.
I just spoke a couple of days ago to a partner of a law firm here in Canada. He said that his time is worth $750 an hour.
Yeah, $750.
So I was surprised that you charge $5.
Yeah, like at Winston and Strom, I have some friends that bill $750 an hour. Some that I hire, the lowest I ever got when I hire attorneys is like $200 an hour. A lot of them range $350 to $400 an hour.
Right.
$500 an hour. I usually depend on the type of work. I do $350 to $500 an hour on hourly rate work, and that's pretty common in the U.S. But I hire as well as I get hired out. It's kind of a weird thing, because I'm general counsel for a couple of our firms, so I have to hire other law firms, and some of them we pay $450 an hour. It's not uncommon. $750 an hour. Legal time in the United States is just really expensive, and you just kind of get used to it. The way it is.
Are you doing cases on contingency?
No. My favorite friends are Bill and Sue. I like Bill a lot better than Sue, because contingency, there are some lawyers that specialize on it. They take it, hey, unless we win in court. Listen, winning in court around here, you're talking 3 years. I've done them before. Okay, don't get me wrong. Okay, and I remember one case we made like $279,000 on this one case years ago, and I got out because I'm going 3 years. I mean, it's not like you win on contingency right away. So I stay away from contingency work. But there's some law firms that they specialize on it. We could do a whole show on legal, but we're not. Instead,
Rakesh was asking me something. Yeah, Rakesh, you can go ahead.
Yeah.
You had a question, right?
No, I'm just talking about when
he's sitting. He's sweating over the legal bills he's about to get. But no, it's not good. Please, tell us what's happening in China, in the world's largest country, but India disputes that.
I was just looking at a documentary on Explained on Netflix, and 100 of the parliamentarians in China are billionaires. Billionaires, not millionaires. Mm-hmm. We were talking. It was quite interesting. I don't know too much, because Hong Kong is a separate world, but if that's a country which didn't have that many billionaires when it started off in the 1980s. So they are, I would say, they're feeling quite confident about handling the world, because they're analyzing, what's the threat to China? The USA? USA has no middle class, no threat. No threat. Your defense budget is 16 times China's defense budget.
Right.
50% of that is payroll.
Right.
No threat. So who's going to stop them?
The Indians are. There's tons of them. Okay, and
Yeah,
their
1/5 the size
their
of the
economy is
GDP.
growing at
1/5.
their economy is growing at 7% GDP.
No, not anymore. Not
Oh,
anymore.
that's because coronavirus.
Mhm.
You know, so we'll see. All I know, you know, I'm not really sure where they're going. I mean, they certainly have a very large economy, and they certainly boost their economy up a lot over in China. And frankly, what happens is the U.S. supports it because they're one of our biggest trading partners. We buy a lot of junk, stuff from India. I mean, not from India, from China. I don't know why we don't buy it from India. It doesn't seem to make any sense. But we actually do buy a lot of IT services over in India. In other
And
words,
medicine.
yeah,
Medicine too.
yeah. So I'm not really sure where it's going.
Products you get from India. It's very difficult to get products from India. It's very easy and it's very plenty that what you get from China.
Yeah,
Primarily, IT services, which you said you get easily from India,
right.
is because regulatory bodies into IT service are very lean. They cannot control a company from outsourcing an IT service from any part of the world. But
Mhm.
when it comes to retail products, when it comes to FMCG products, or maybe electronic or electrical products, then there has to be lots of certification issues with the government of your country, or any country for that sake, maybe Europe, or it can be United States. When we do this global trade and world trade WTO agreements, it usually comes up to us that we are free to trade there, and they are also free to trade here in India. But
Right.
in actual transitions, we have almost all chain of global restaurants, be it KFC, be it Starbucks, everything. What you have there, we have here. But when in turn it comes to us that we would have our retail stores, then there are lots of tasting certification which comes in the way. Our medicines, our chemicals, our cosmetics, most of the things denied from the permission. So
Mhm.
that is why you don't get. And I think now market is changing, and people are more interested in, and not from the food product, but also from the cosmetics and the wellness products and the medical care products, to take it from India.
Yeah, yeah. I can see a lot of production being done over there. But in China, the thing is, what's the for apparently we have a problem beaming in. I know that Rakesh comes into Hong Kong, but we almost never have anybody from mainland China on any of our shows. So and they have more billionaires there. I don't understand China. How can you be a communist country and have 100 billionaires? How do you do that, Rakesh?
Well, I can't say. I've only been there for a few visits, but I can say this much, that they are very, very responsive to manufacturing challenges. I tried to export once, televisions from India to the UK. I was working with an English company then, and they had this contract. I just couldn't get anybody in India to manufacture something which just met the fire safety standards of the UK.
Mhm.
But in China, they would do it in a trice, because
Right.
they are so much more flexible. And I learned that much later when I joined with Whirlpool, who had operations both in India and China. So that they have a PLA person sitting in on almost every meeting, People's Liberation Army person sitting in on every meeting, and they get things done.
Oh, really? Okay. So in China, they're more aggressive to make sure that
That's how they became the factory of the world.
Right?
You can't do that in a democracy like India, and especially a diverse democracy where each state speaks a different language. You just can't do it. That is a much more homogeneous country, a much more disciplined country.
Right.
While in India, you just wouldn't be able to do that. Individual brilliance you will find in India. Team brilliance you will find in China.
But
Really?
his question was, how do they have multi-billionaires? 100 multi-billionaires, right?
100
billionaires, billionaires
sit on there.
How come in a socialist country like China?
Yes, your notions of communism have long since been abandoned out there.
That's what I think.
It's long since been abandoned. They have no people in extreme poverty, absolutely zero. We have so many. You go to Orissa, you will find hundreds, thousands, hundreds of thousands.
Yeah, they built up the one thing I think they did a good job is they've built up a lot of their people are doing well financially, which I think is really good.
Most people have been left out.
I don't really care about
anywhere else in the world.
And it's really, are they taking care of their people? And I think in China they do a good job with that. It's regardless of what anybody else says about you like or hate, who cares? They're taking care of their people, and that's the important thing. So, but in terms of like us, when we broadcast, I notice we get a lot of people from all over the world, and then I go to mainland China. I'm going, are we having government problems? Are we having language barrier? Because they speak Mandarin and Cantonese, and we don't. So
don't bet on it. Don't bet on it. One of the Whirlpool guys said that he had this PLR gay guy sitting on the board meeting. They thought he couldn't speak English. On the last meeting, when they were discussing something really critically important, he spoke in perfect
English,
unaccented English.
Really? Yeah.
Don't bet on it.
I'm just saying that from our broadcasting, I've had people send me comments from the Philippines, from Africa, obviously from Australia. But here's two countries which I haven't got comments on: Russia and China. And I'm going like, what gives? Are we still doing some Cold War stuff going on? Now, Alexander Starr, since Alexander Starr used to live in Moscow, he may be able to give me a better perspective on what deals in Russia. And I was there about 6 years ago. I went to St. Petersburg. I was treated, it was really great. They had great food, great people. I was in a great hotel called the Petro Palace in St. Petersburg. I had a great time in Russia. And then, all of a sudden, poof, it's like, getting Russians on IBM TV. It's like, it's like a Cold War barrier right now. I don't get it. So Alexander, since you used to live in the great city of Moscow, what's going on there? Or do you still have contacts over there in Moscow?
Yes, I still do have contacts. Although for various reasons, the huge thing happened in 2014 when Russia invaded and basically annexed Crimea region of Ukraine. That was really something what immediately put a border and a huge barrier, I would say, between those people who supported this Russian action and those people who were obviously against it. I happen to be one who was adamantly against that. It could have and should have been done completely differently and so on. But it seems to me Russia, like in many cases, they're more worried about the end result rather the way how to achieve that. They're not so much concerned. And so from that point on, Russia became more or less isolated on international arena. However, you must admit that Mr. Putin, he's a great tactician, and he's brilliantly displaying lousy cards that he was dealt. He's playing them brilliantly against the United States, against basically all outside world. Now, with this coronavirus collapse and oil prices and everything else, it remains to be seen how he will continue to display his lousy hand and continue to get any positive results. It may not last forever and shouldn't last, but it's still going on. Yeah. Now he is concerned about the amendment to Constitution that would allow him to rule for the next 275 years. But,
a long time.
Yeah, that's right. Those are his plans. Yeah. And it may just not happen for various reasons. The Mother Nature, and while he cannot actually he cannot actually perfect this election of this new constitution, simply because of the coronavirus. People cannot voice their voice. So now he has to delay that process.
Right.
And obviously, they wouldn't trust such thing as um, the election by mail service or so on. They're not like Americans. Americans can do mail election, but in Russia, they will never go for it. So obviously, that election of new constitution will be delayed for another probably 4 or 5 years. So Putin will be at that time about almost 75 years. Then he's in good health. He's doing exercise. He's swimming. He's flying. He's doing whatever possible. So I think he'll live until about 115. But you know what? Interestingly, a friend of mine after 2014, he started really to worry about his health. He started exercises. He has his time for a fitness club, and he's doing the diet and so on. And when he was asked why is he doing all that, he says, "Well, you know what? I want to be alive on the day of Putin's funerals. I'd love to see that. And the only way to do it, because he is such in good shape, I have to be even in better shape." So that's what he's doing.
But see, it doesn't. I look at the numbers. Doesn't Russia have some demographic issues? First of all, they're not that big anymore. They have 175 million people. Okay, China's sitting with over 1 billion. India has over 1 billion. And Russia has 175 million. And it's not a growing population. It's actually a shrinking population. They only have really 3 major cities, I think right now, maybe 4. Moscow, St. Petersburg, Vladivostok, and maybe Stalingrad. And then that's about it. The rest of it's vast territory of nothing. But don't they face a bit of a problem that their demographics are pretty small, even though it's beautiful? I mean, I really love St. Petersburg. I'm hoping that the relationship with the United States and Russia get better. I've been trying to improve it. But over here, if you tell people, hey, Russia's beautiful and we had a great time there, they look at me like, you're sick. We're supposed to be at war with them or something. I go like, why? The fact is, we're not at war with them. They have a beautiful country. The people were really nice at the Petro Palace. The hotel people were nice. All the people that were at the restaurants were nice. I just had a super great time in St. Petersburg. And then all of a sudden, we're not getting along. And I go, in Ukraine, you can argue it. But when I look at the demographics there, most of the people in Crimea were actually Russian natives. So, you can look at that another way. Yeah, they took over a place that was basically Russian anyway. And you're right, maybe the way they did it was not proper, but seriously, that was a Russian it was a Russian place anyway,
Okay.
What's going on?
All these beauties of St. Petersburg that you've seen,
yes,
they are all built by Italians. Russians have nothing to do with that. All 100% Italian. Now, you enjoy your food in Russia, really?
No,
Russian food is, by the way, Georgian food. It's not Russian food.
Indian food and Chinese food are much better. I'm never going to say the Russian food was great. It wasn't. But there was a dessert place which was really good. Right near St. Petersburg. Dessert. Yeah, they have really good pies and they have really good sweets. I mean, that was good.
They're all flown from Paris. But let me tell you something. The best Russian food is not even Russian food. It's a Georgian food. The Georgian food is really amazing. I went yesterday to pick up from Georgian restaurant here in Toronto. They have fantastic food to die for. Actually, I don't care if coronavirus will go on for another 3-4 years. As long as I will be still alive, I will get some food from this Georgian restaurant, and I don't care about anything else. But something else. You are absolutely right about Crimea. Yeah, there was a lot of Russian speaking. Not so much writing, although most of these people are illiterate. So let's stop on Russian speaking population. Okay, so they could speak some Russian. As a matter of fact, Crimea economically, it's 100% losing proposition because there is no industry, there is absolutely nothing. The place is now, it's a huge liability for Russia to support it. And Russians are furious about the Crimea because they built all this fancy most, which is crumbling now, and they want to, because you see, to go by train, you have to go through Ukraine, and because now with Ukraine there is practically a war.
Right.
So they cannot go through Ukraine. So they have to go about extra 1,000 miles to go around, and then it's a peninsula, so there's still no way to enter the Crimea. So they have to build this bridge, which is worth billions of dollars. So finally they build it, but it's now crumbling, and there are some international laws were violated because part of Ukraine is on the other side of the bridge. So Russian, once they arrested, they stopped Ukrainian vessel, which is going to Ukrainian port. So they stopped it, they arrested it, it's scandal. Okay, now speaking about the population size, okay, if you take country like Sweden, 10 million people, Denmark, 5 million people, these countries are doing phenomenally well, and they're not huge countries, and they don't have huge military either, but they're doing very well. And I've been in all these countries, and the life is beautiful there. And now, but you know, one interesting thing, they're part of European Union, and European Union is about 500 million people.
That's true.
So if there is any economical theory, they're thinking that in order to be sustainable, the economic, either a country or economic alliance, whatever it could be, must have at least 500 million people. If you don't have that, you don't have economy, you don't have nothing. Really.
Right.
So, Russia is, what did you say, 175 million people, spread over the 1/7 of the landmass of Earth.
Right.
It's pathetic. They will never able to make it economically. They have to start war against somebody like they always do, because if there is no war, they're crumbling, they're going apart. They cannot sustain themselves. That's why they're having wars for the last 1,200 years.
Yeah.
Because without wars, they're unsustainable.
Eventually they're going to have to ally with somebody. I mean, they're going to have to create some partnership with somebody, because I agree with you, with 175 million and a declining 175, they're going to have to create some sort of allegiance with some other country so they can benefit from economies of scale. You know, to isolate themselves with 175 million is just not, I don't see how that's going to be rational for them.
Who have alliance with them? Maybe San Marino or Vatican?
They can ally with the United States. We're both on the same.
The United States.
We both think alike in a lot of respects.
One thing the United States would do very well, actually, if they would invite Putin to become a president of the United States. That they could do quite well with that. And one way of legally doing that, exactly what you just mentioned, is just to have one country, and Putin will be president of both Russia and the United States. And
United he already is. Yeah. He already is. He rules Trump.
We got to get him over here and let him go look around this great diverse land that we have with 300 million people that are all going in different directions. You know, and I think he needs to take some visit and you know, go see some of the cities and stuff. And see what.
Sure. But you know what, Trump, in reality, Trump is actually a very lousy student, because if he would be a good student, what he would do, he would immediately demolish the Congress. He would just forbade. He would just say, there's no more Congress.
Yeah, there's no reason to have these guys. You know. Well, I just think there's a better relationship.
There on the screen. We have a question which is there on the screen, I guess.
Oh, a question? Oh, gosh.
Oh, yeah.
Russia and China, is it a lack of global trust? Could it be due to media manipulation or some of their own actions? I'm not sure about the media manipulation right now, because I don't know what, all I do know, at least, and again, I don't know for sure, is that when we beam out IBM TV, Like I said, Nepal, people see us in Nepal. I get feedback from Nepal. Okay. I get feedback in almost every country in Africa, South America, almost Mexico, everywhere except 2 countries, China and Russia. Okay. Don't get any feedback from China and Russia. And maybe if you still have some friends over in Russia, you can ask them, Sasha, are they able to get IBM TV? And if not, then we're being what I call blocked. Okay. And I've been
But
blocked before.
Good question. I will definitely.
Yeah, check them out. And I've been blocked before because Facebook blocks me every now and then when I try to ask. I don't know if you guys get this when I start going to all these groups and stuff and asking about IBM TV. If I ask too many questions on Facebook, I get blocked. Okay. And I'm going like, whoa.
Yesterday.
It happened to you yesterday. Yeah,
Yeah.
Facebook has become our best ally and also a very difficult ally. Okay, because they're our best because they have all these groups that you can go to and you can invite them on IBM TV, and a lot of people will show up. That's the good part. The bad part is Facebook will arbitrarily block you if you invite too many groups. Just block you like that. Or if they don't like how you invited people, they'll block you like that. So we have our own sort of control here through Facebook, which is the world's largest social media network. So it's really good, and then also it's a challenge. But since they are able to block, I was just thinking, well, are we being blocked in China, mainland China? Obviously not Hong Kong, or Rakesh would never be here. Are we being blocked in Russia? And if so, how? I'm not even sure how they block the internet, but I'm sure there's got to be a tech way to go, oh, IBM TV, we don't like. They talk about American things, click, and they shut us off. But talk to your friends in Russia because, even though I was over there, and I played chess, obviously, you got to do that when you're in Russia.
Yeah, I think chess part probably has a good chance to do some inroads in Russia.
Yeah.
Let me ask you something about, since we are talking about alliance between US and Russia and maybe even become one country. I want to remind you a couple of things. Number one is many years ago, the province of Quebec in Canada, they had a referendum about going solo, to be no longer part of Canada, to be independent country.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so there was a referendum in Quebec on that, and the separatists, so-called, they got 49.78%. So they lost the referendum by 0.22 points. So obviously they said that they are going to prepare another referendum in 2 years with the same question. Now, nobody expected such a close result, so everybody started to look into this more closely. And economists actually divided all the national debt and between all the provinces, including Quebec and so on. And it became evident that Quebec, for economical reason only, they cannot be independent country because they will collapse under huge deficit and debts and many other things. And no more referendum ever being held on the separation. Although they have obviously different language, they have different culture, different way of life, I would say. Yeah, more European in some way. And so that issue was dropped dead. Now, another situation happened when Czechoslovakia, they made a referendum to split into 2 states, Czech Republic and Slovakia. Now, mind you, it's a very small country. They speak almost the same language. They have almost the same culture. Now, Czech is a little bit more Western influenced culture, and Slovakia more Eastern influence. Still, it was the same country for so many years. Now, they're both doing relatively well. Czech Republic is doing very well, and that was expected. But Slovakia is doing quite well too. So that worked out. Now, when 2 countries would unite instead of dividing, so as you propose, United States and Russia, okay, everything is possible in this world, and even this is possible. But now, what are the grounds for making it the same country? what are the economic, cultural, historical, just name it, political, name it, at least one reason why it would be beneficial to both countries, and what one country and then another one will gain out of it. Let's see what US would gain out of the becoming one country with Russia.
First of all, I mean, we actually supported them. We were allies in this thing called World War II, in case you didn't know. And we sent a bunch of people over there to fight on their grounds through Archangel. This is years ago. The other thing is they do have good art. They do have scientists like we do. In other words, and we did some joint ventures with them, like on the space shuttle. And one thing about Russia, they have a large amount of engineers. They're heavy into engineering. I mean, the thing is engineering and math, and those are really big topics over them. So I think there's a lot of commonality, common ground that we could use. Our chess players are not near as good as they are over there, but we're working on that, as you notice, because what we do is we recruit our chess players internationally. So we have several of the best players in the world because they come from all over the world. So I think there's a lot of common ground that could actually take place between the U.S. and Russia, and frankly, almost with every country, as long as you seek common ground. See, if you seek to be antagonistic, guess what you're going to find is antagonism. If you seek common ground, you're going to find common ground. I mean, it's just the natural way of life. For me personally, I don't care who built the buildings over there, but I will tell you the artwork was great at the Hermitage. The food wasn't that great, except the desserts were good. The city is absolutely gorgeous, and I'm talking about St. Petersburg, Russia. And the thing is, the vast majority of people are very nice. You do have your pickpockets. I did get pickpocketed, and the guy who pickpocketed me only made like $20 because I don't carry cash. I carry all these bloody credit cards that we canceled and couldn't use them. I mean, it was like he was wasting his time. But you always have that element no matter where you go. So I think there's a lot of opportunities if people are willing to look for opportunities. It's just like our relationship with India. Yes, Ajit.
Yeah, I was coming back to the question what Kim asked.
Mm-hmm.
Russia and China, in terms of media and transparency, I
Right.
look at it that if we are traveling to Russia, at least we get to use our cell phones, we get to use our Facebook or whatever social media or even Google. But in China, transparency is very low. Media is not at all free. You have to struggle for your own internet. Even at the times, you cannot use Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, anything and everything. They have a Chinese version of it. At this stage of time, when you are looking about Corona and the other thing, I look at this non-transparency as an issue because in initial days, if you look at the January 2020, when initial detection about Corona was there, it was not across the globe. It was only limited to Wuhan, but the actual news did not came out to the globe. They managed to press it, and when people who were infected, they traveled across the globe, then it reaches the globe. So right now, if I see the world has learned something from this non-transparency of media issue, tomorrow a country like Russia, I am including North Korea also because it's also in the same pattern. Would be very difficult for a company like China to survive if they would not allow a very basic standard of world utilization, transparency, what they are doing with the natural resources, what they are doing, what kind of R&D they are doing on the human and the body and the DNA and the virus. So
Mhm.
this sort of very basic information need to come out into the global media. It should not be pressed by the government and its politics. We all have right to know this, and if a country does not allow, I think it's not my learning alone, in the entire globe has learned this, that if you do not allow a very transparent media and a very transparent reporting system, then people would hesitate to allow your flights to land in our cities, in our country, and
Mhm.
also to travel and to have a trade with such countries.
Mhm. Yeah,
Vijay,
but
you
I
know
think
that
yeah,
Indian transparency ratings have also fallen.
What do you mean ratings have fallen?
The media transparency ratings for India have fallen.
Yeah.
Obviously, any country. I'm not
Yes,
saying about
yes.
one
No,
country.
I think what you need is what I call reasonable transparency, because
And it would have to fall in the same line, because in coming generation, when these countries, not these only, all countries who are going to go through the elections, it is very difficult for a right wing or a left wing or an economist or a socialist or a leftist to win election. Only people who are going to win elections are environmentalists, who are going to give you a very robust and very strong promise that we are not going to let happen a corona episode part 2, and it's only possible with the transparency, with a proper care, and with a very pragmatic approach towards research and towards development of I think immunity or some kind of physical fitness of people to immune over the virus, any type of virus.
Today, even in a country like New Zealand, the Greens are the weakest party. Even in a country which is so aware like New Zealand, and I've seen this trend over the elections, the Greens are the weakest.
Mhm.
So it's going to take some time before we get into this.
It is taking time, Rajesh. There is no time left. And if you look at the air travel, what Alexander said, that the air travel price has gone very high. Why it has gone very high? Because people are not ready to die. Neither the ground staff or the airport staff or the crew member are going to die. So the plane which was carrying 30 people, it may carry 10 people now. But the cost of operation would remain same and maybe higher than that. People who will be traveling, the number of people will reduce because of the distancing, social distancing, physical distancing, whatever you say. And in these scenarios, when you have to do an installation and you have to maintain a database, international database of people that I am infected with these sort of virus infection, and if I want to travel to a country, the country has a right to allow your travel, not only on the basis of visa or on the basis of their diplomatic relationship with my country, but also on the basis of health, that what kind of virus, what kind of bacteria I'm carrying into their country. And these kind of transparency would not be limited to a test which you have done in your country. They will test you at the airport. There are lots of airports which I have heard are doing installation of entire setting, entire setup to scan a person from tip to toe, and then they will allow you. Before that, we had to, I think, 4 or 5 parameters of allowing a visa to a country, that whether the person who is entering my country should not be wanted by the Interpol, and it should not be blocked by our immigration, and he should have sufficient money in the account, etc. But right now, the physical fitness and the clean test report is very important. Every country is going to do this.
We have a question from our viewer. How is it in South Aka? Is that how you pronounce it?
South Asia, I think. South Asia.
Aceh is a province
COVID.
in Indonesia.
Oh, South Asia, right? Or I don't
Not
know.
Asia, not Asia. It is Aceh. It is a province in Indonesia,
Okay.
which is
okay.
Oh, it is. Okay, good. I needed some education from our panel. So where is South Aka?
Aceh is the place where in Indonesia where the tsunami hit.
Got to get my globe out.
Where
Go
the
to
tsunami
Malaysia. Okay,
The-
go to our Malaysia expert.
What was the question, Bud?
Okay, Rana, you're the Malaysia expert, so you're gonna have to go
Okay.
to that.
Basically, first thing first, I just want to introduce some of the things, because this discussion is very interesting. But some of the people representing China, some of the people representing India, even from Russia and the USA, we get a very combine of things. First thing first, I just want to give you this answer. Actually, for Indonesia, I think they're trying their level best. But what we are talking about, this transparency, information, so a lot of media issue, everything is important. Even though for Indonesia, I think that they need to collaborate. Like example, they can even collaborate with Taiwan, they can collaborate with even Vietnam, even Malaysia. They are trying to do so. Even most importantly, from China, actually China, they are helping this kind of country. In Malaysia, they're helping a lot. That is the fact for controlling this COVID-19 with their expert, even though they have a commitment for vaccine. Second things, so this kind of country, because Indonesia have a lot of peoples, so as they have lot of peoples, controlling these things is difficult. Second thing, actually, economy is important, because example, how actually USA people thinks, like Indonesian people or Indonesian family, they cannot continue their business in same way. Even how Malaysia they can operate, Indonesia also cannot operate in the same way. But there are some interesting things, like example, media, these, that, very thing, everything is important. But my question is that, like, lot of thing happening around the world, right? Lot of information, lot of research, lot of guideline, actually, where people get the genuine informations. Now people actually have a lot of, with the help of social media, even every time, from government, parliament member, even from journalist, from even, I'm very want to give you information, but like a researcher, everybody is actually confused what's going on around the world. So media is important. I just want to finish. Just media is important, but issue is that we need to be reliable media. We need reliable information. Even this is the expectation from IBM TV, from my side. Like,
Right.
we need a reliable information, and which is helpful for human being. And most importantly, like example, when a economy actually grow, I'm actually very interested about economy and this kind of thing. Let's say USA now, that heavily depend on their vaccination and this kind of things from India, like even chloroquines and these things. Even what I know, that Pune, they are producing vaccine with the collaboration of Oxford University. Even China, they're doing a lot of research, this that. Even if we look professionally, like when this kind of exclusive research happen, like example, it's under non-disclosure agreement, maybe it will not go public. Okay, this is the reality we have to understand professionally. So what we can do, our government playing a very important role, every government. And if they want to share their information which is valid and which is helpful, we should. But definitely we need some sort of even guideline for media. Now I do not know, even many people do not know what's going on around the world.
Rana,
So
nobody knows what's going on.
okay, yes,
Nobody knows what's going on.
yeah,
That's
This
right.
yeah,
crisis
It's true.
media is
is not
important. Media,
at the country level. This crisis is at the international global level. That
yes,
when
yes,
whatever development or whatever achievement which we used to call is a development, it's an advancement. Everything has failed. All formula and all formulation has failed. People are dying, mostly into those rich countries where we thought that the healthcare system and their hospitalization and their diagnosis system was very high. So when such kind of very established factor they fail, then we have the journey inward, and we have to really think about where we went wrong. And when entire globe is thinking same, then the crisis is not only on the basis of the country, that your country and you need information or a very clear genuine knowledge from your government. It can be an international requirement of your government also, that they need to understand where do we go and what we ask. I'm bringing back the panel on a very different note, that at this stage of time, I think Rakesh and me have discussed this point little before. We were thinking how we started, and the research and development which entire humankind which we did in last, I don't know, 5,000 years, is how did life started on the earth. We never focused enough time and enough energy or enough money or R&D to understand how we all are going to die. This is a situation where you have gotten 1 gram. The total weight of coronavirus is less than a gram, which has created so much havoc across the globe. And that 1 gram is telling you that we have a size, we have a shape, and we have a number. If we cross that number, if we enter into territory of animals, into forest, into space, inside the water, inside the sea, then there is something which can actually put us back in our home. And it took only 1 gram for the nature to do that. And right now, if you are seeing that the conflict between your survival and the nature is very clear, is very one to one in front of each other, then who is going to help you?
Mhm.
Only a country, only an ideology which can help you is
Mhm.
an ideology which teaches you to live with the nature. If you
Mhm.
cannot live with the nature, if you do not understand how to live with the nature, how to maintain a balance, then there is nothing which you can do with this. No matter how many hospitals and how many ambulances and how many ventilators you have, still people will die. So in this stage of time, I see India as a coming very new hub for the knowledge. India has always been pioneer in telling people how to live in balance with the nature. Look at the Jainism, look at the Buddhism, look at the Hinduism. All very close to nature religions has came from India. And at this stage of time, if you look at yoga, if you look at naturopathy, if you look at Ayurvedic, all natural herbs and all sciences which we used to practice 5,000, maybe 4,000 years back, used to tell us how are we going to chew food, what we should eat, what we should not eat. And if you look at the strength of people, the strength of our ancestors who used to wear lots of heavy armors and then sword, and then they used to jump and sit on the horses. What they were eating, what were the lifestyle, what yoga they were doing, what kind of mental exercise they were doing. These all are the knowledge reservoirs which India has, and it is not only useful for India now, it is also useful for the world.
Mhm.
Look at the yoga, it is world famous right now. If you look at Ayurvedic, if you look at naturopathy, I can count the number of things which India has given to world, and it also brings an economic opportunity right now to do a repackaging, revisiting of our own Vedic culture and knowledge and give it back to the world. Because this is something which is terrible. This is telling us that the direction which we were heading is the wrong direction. Over to you.
Yeah. Yeah, well, what happened in India gave us a great person called Ankit, who has his 1.3 billion Facebook followers. So that's helped out pretty well. But also, aren't we seeing a change because of social media? In other words, like even the program we're doing on IBM TV really couldn't be done very well 20 years ago because you guys can beam in from all over the world. We can all be together real time. And that just didn't exist. And the other thing is, because of the flights, in other words, the cost of flying has actually gone down. Like I checked going to visit Ankit in New Delhi. I go to Orbitz all the time. It's like $700 round trip. I mean, for $350, I can go to New Delhi from Raleigh, Durham. I mean, that's halfway across the world. Well, what's happened because of the cost of going down, we're drawn closer to India and China and places around the world because they're more accessible than they were years ago. In other words, what's happening also in the media, because we're able to break through using the World Wide Web into media, where before, even the United States, there was no way you could break into media because it was all controlled by CBS, ABC, NBC, and that was it. And so our media opportunities are a lot greater than they were years ago. And this is going to, I think, force governments to recognize that there are people out there. In other words, there are people from around the world out there, which right now they don't really want to recognize, or some of the governments don't want to recognize. And they're going to have to deal with a vast army of people out there that they didn't have to. Even Malaysia, like it's good to see Rana on Malaysia, because our information here in the United States when it comes to Malaysia, nothing. In other words, like that place in Malaysia, Aachen or what the name was. I mean, I was sitting there going, "Where is that? Is that in India? Is that in China? Where the heck is that place?" Of course, you knew right away, but we don't get much. Like I said, Malaysia doesn't get much press here in the USA, so it's I'm just learning it as I go, and it's not like I haven't received a lot of formal education in the United States, but there was no special on Malaysia here, so it's all news to me. And I think what you're going to see with social media, we're going to see some breakdowns as people are going to recognize other countries, other cultures, other environments, except maybe for China and Russia as soon as they get on board. And I think eventually they're going to have to, because maybe they can block us from the World Wide Web now, but they're not going to be able to do that forever. You know, ultimately,
in Asia, I guess.
What?
It would not happen at least in Asia. And it's a very good thing which you told that in US, the media which you guys are doing live, it's was earlier it was controlled and now it's free. I think it's the only thing which will take United States far ahead, even ahead than us, because Rakesh was just before there was some time when I was speaking, he was talking about freedom of press and freedom of media in India and Asia. Right,
Sure.
Rakesh?
Yeah.
If
Yes,
you have something very specific, will be able to talk it.
Yeah.
well, it is just something I read in the news, and that too Indian newspaper, which said that there is an organization that rates transparency, government transparency, media
Right.
transparency, media freedom, and India had actually dropped on that, which means it was losing something. So I was just talking about that. It's but eventually technology will drive
Yeah.
greater freedom of information. And
Right.
I 100% agree with you.
even in the most controlled countries on earth, there are VPNs and things like that. People find a way to find out.
Right. Oh,
So
see, that's what I think. No,
satellites, so
yeah.
many things.
Yeah.
So
No, I
you
agree with
can't
you.
hide things.
Eventually, they're
Nick
going to break
and
through.
Ankit are the live example with us on the panel
Yeah.
of a free press and free media. Whatever they wish to do a live, and whenever they want to relay and broadcast something, they can do that. But coming back to Rakesh, I have one concern regarding these international organizations who do a global ranking. I'm including WHO also into that, because WHO, what was the role of WHO? It was World Health Organization. It was their role to warn us before the COVID-19 virus spread from China to the world. They did a very terrible work in terms of giving an early warning to the world. They knew lots of things. They were involved into lots of the research which was happening into China. They also gave them grants. They also have their diplomatic relationship with China. But how come they missed it? And if you are talking about the organization who are doing transparency research on Indian media, they should also look at the kind of international awards which is being given to journalists, the kind of political vendetta they manage. We had recently, few days back, we have Pulitzer Awards. I don't know how do I pronounce it even.
Pulitzer.
Pulitzer Awards, and it was given to three journalists who were giving a narrative. The award was holding a narrative that India has occupied Kashmir, and it has forcefully entered into the territory of Kashmir. And then people who are there, they're clicking photographs, and for clicking their photographs, they have given an award. So, what kind of narrative they are trying to set is not neutral. If somebody is giving me a report, if somebody flashes me a report right now that your nation transparency of media is lower than China, I can see a direct vendetta in his mind that he is just trying to defame a country. For it may be a political reason or an
Excuse
international
me, may I
Maybe
interject
we
something?
just say
We're
this.
talking about international relations and diplomacy between China and other countries, and therefore China should have warned, China should have done this or that. In 1930s, before Second World War, there were diplomatic relationships between Germany and England and France and Austria and Russia and United States and just name it. Did it help to avert Second World War? Didn't help anybody in Second World War. Absolutely not. So consider this fact. China is now awash with cash, trillions of dollars in its coffers, no debts. They have access to the latest technology in the world, the most advanced engineering and technology, and they're just a little bit getting sick and tired of being taught by other countries, including the United States, of what to do and how to do and so on. And they just don't feel that they have to oblige and say, oh, yeah, sorry, okay, we'll do this, we'll do that. It was like that 20 years ago and 30 years ago and 50 years ago and 75 years ago. No more. Just forget that. It will never come back. today China is self-reliant. It's very powerful economically from militaristic point of view, and nobody's crazy enough to start a serious war against China. That will not happen. And if no wars, then China is not feared of anybody in this universe, period. So that's what you've got. And you have to be very careful and very polite when you're talking about China and its obligation, what they have to do and what they don't have to do. It's really up to them to decide. And they will do only as much as they feel that this is beneficial to them, nobody else in this world.
Mm-hmm. Which is an argument, the reason why Russia should move closer to the United States.
You see, Russia. Okay, I'll tell you about
and
Russia.
the
Russia is no longer.
United States, India, and Russia should be good friends because there's this big economy growing called China.
The United States.
Well, look, United States economy is self-sustaining really well.
Yeah, but we've
Even
really
without
shrunk.
Canada and Mexico, but especially in this NAFTA part, United States is doing really well. Now, Canada may not be that well satisfied, and Canada is looking for new
Canada gets along
alliances.
with everybody.
But Canada is a small potato. Nobody really cares what they would
Right,
like
I
to do.
agree.
You know all that.
It's got a lot of land, no people.
Nick, I want to tell you
it's
something
always
very
a
interesting.
weird country.
There is a
We
very
should, we should live like good neighbors. Before we can become good friends, because friendship changes every decade. According to the economic situations, according to the world dynamic change. I think post-COVID also there is a dynamic change in the world economics and how we behave and how we deal with other countries, and that's how we have new friends every time.
Yeah, but
If we have good neighbors, I think that would make much more sense than talking about the global economy, because with your neighbor you can talk about a lot of things, and then that adds value to your global economy. What do you think,
But
Abhijit?
don't forget about one thing. Ankit, about neighbor. Let me tell you something else. You have to worry about yourself first. And your neighbor has to worry about himself first. So if both neighbors are worrying about themselves and doing well, it means both neighbors are doing well.
Yeah, but it's easier to become neighbors.
If I think about myself, I don't think about my neighbor.
To save another neighbor. No. He will save himself. And then his neighbor also has to save himself. And then both neighbors are doing very well and they're saving themselves.
That's not the case in India.
Yeah, but see, the thing is, it's easier to become neighbors when you get to know people through the internet, like social media. Like Rana is from Malaysia. I think he's the only person I know in the whole country of Malaysia.
Okay.
I don't know anybody in Malaysia, but now I have a neighbor in Malaysia, Rana, right? Okay, so Rana, how many people do you know in the United States? Tell me.
Yes, actually, I told you from 2009, from my undergraduate times. That time, actually, I engaged with debating community. I attended the World Debating Championship. I told you in Oxford University and the Cambridge University, I attend for debating championship. So from that times, actually, I engaged with a lot of people, not only from USA, around the world. We have a chance when we go for debating in Oxford Union. So we have a chance like meet with many countries people from USA, from Europe, from Asia. So that kind of integrations I have, as well as when I start my jobs. So that times I'm working for United Group. So that times we have integrations with the USA people, we have integration with European Unions, we have integrations with Asian country. So that is the way. From that point of view, I just trying to share, because there is a very good question for like breathing globally and that kind of things. Actually, my point of view as a economical understanding, always I say, every country build up their economy based on their local demand first. It's India build their economy based on their local demands. Even India has brilliant big group of companies. Let's say Tata Group, one of the biggest group of companies in India, right? Even China, first they are actually heavily depend on manufacturing. Okay, from their house, from their small medium enterprise, everywhere they do build up their manufacturing. When they fill up their local demand, then they move to the international arena. In India also same. India producing a lot of intellectual people, right? For lawyers, even actually my family, all of them actually lawyers except me. Okay, like India produced a doctor, India produced engineers. Now they are playing a leading role in Silicon Valley, in hospitals, and in different countries, even in Malaysia, right? So even in Malaysia is a very good combination of multicultural things. Like we have Bhumiputra, Malaysian local people, we have Chinese, okay, we have Indian peoples, and we have multicultural countries. Even US people in my condominiums, US people, Canadian people, European people, we live together. There are around 10,000 people we live in one condominiums. So different countries. I think if you move and you discuss, I think you at least find 40 different nations we live together. But that is the important things. Why number one, why my expectation high in with IBM TV? We need reliable informations. Let's forget like politics first. Like we do not like, we are small people, we love to live peacefully. We do not like too much of politics. We like too much of good relationship. We like good relationship with India. We like good relationship with USA. We like good relation with China. That is the way. In the Malaysia is a good hub. Why I said I do not want to promoting too much, but if you come, if you visit, I'm sure your IBM TV, your chess competition will be very interesting for local community. So even now, many people start observing IBM TV. I try to share with corporations, with the government people, with many people. But issue is that globalization is most important. We have to be connected. Connection create opportunity. So let's forget like politics. Let's forget the what's the many kind of corporate control media do. Better we make our individual, we fulfill our individual need. Now we have to survive. Now we have to save my people. Now we have to save my community. So this is not high time who is doing bad, who doing good, who is control information, who is manipulating information. Yes, we will learn. Definitely we will recognize these things. But for the earnest request, those who are best scientists, we need to collaborate. Those who are best doctor, we need to collaborate. Those who are good corporation for social contribution, we need to collaborate. Even those who are good lawyers for our security and corporation, we need to collaborate. Okay, by this ecosystem, we can save many people. Believe me, if we just focus on this media hawks, this, that, we cannot. We need better thing.
Rana,
And
I have
globalization.
a small question from you.
Yes.
I have a small question from you. You are saying that we as a people, we are not interested into politics. We just want
Yes.
to have good relationships. But
Yes.
people who are going to do front end for you into an international relationship or into a diplomatic relationships, they are usually controlled by politicians. And what you are talking with me or what I am talking with Nick, it cannot affect the relationship between my country and his country because it is being taken and is holded by the leadership, which is political, and by the diplomats, which are also controlled by the politicians. So my suggestion, which is there to you for the inclusion, is
Okay.
to you and me together, everybody. You can just talk to me, I can talk to you, we can talk and we can make an alliance, but we cannot ask our country to sign and get into a bilateral agreement until and unless we ask to do and we elect a government which is going to do that so for you. So the
Okay.
agenda which you need to set here, and not only here but on the all platforms, is to
Yes.
choose a government. And in many countries you cannot even choose a government because there is no democracy, there is no voting. So what you are saying is practically impossible to
No, no, no.
get
Please.
on the ground.
I just want to some practice. I want to add because
Can I ask you
I'm
one thing, Vijay? Do you think there's no voting in China?
No,
okay.
there are
I have
voting,
no
but
idea
what
what
they
goes
do,
on in
if they
China.
are selecting one party and which is free to do whatever they want to do, what is the point of voting? I don't know who is voting in China for
How
having
familiar
president.
are you with the political system in China?
I'm aware about the political system, but it is not as transparent, as participative as other countries.
And what is your opinion about the collegium, the electoral collegium in the United States?
Oh,
United
brother, you
States-
didn't hear the latest on that, did you? Did you hear the latest on the electoral college, guys? Okay,
Please, I think
you'll love it.
right
Okay.
person to talk about it.
Here's the argument. See, lawyers always make money because people fight, and then what they do is they pay us. Okay, and when they start paying us to fight, then they stop fighting because they're realizing I'm making all the money, and that's the realities of law practice. Okay, we got to interject ourselves. Who has a dispute?
Yes.
I don't care. I'm here to help you fight. Okay, you pay me. I fight. Then you go, hey, you're paying me, and you go, hey, I don't want to fight. It's not worth it. But anyway, here's what they're doing right now. And it may go in front of the Supreme Court of the United States. The Electoral College, here's the argument, that the people that serve in the Electoral College are free to vote any way they want, and they don't have to listen to the American public. Okay, and they're going all the way back to the history of the Electoral College to give them total autonomy, which, if that is true, that means that when we have our election by popular vote, it will mean nothing because the Electoral College can get together and say, I'm going to elect Joe or John. They don't really care. So it goes in front of the Supreme Court someday because a couple of the electoral people in the Electoral College in Colorado decide not to vote for, I think, Clinton back then. And then they were fined by the state of Colorado, and they say, hey, look, we can vote any way we want. So it's working its way through our legal system, which will be pretty interesting. Yes, we know India is the world's largest democracy, and China's the world's largest. We don't know what they are. And I agree with Ajit, that the real problem at the end of the day, and this is the real problem, everything goes to the politicians to make the decision. Otherwise, we would have this COVID-19 solved by medical doctors and not a bunch of politicians. And this has always griped me because even here in this country, it's not like we brought in front of the American public the medical doctors and the virologists and the pathologists to sit and discuss it with you. Instead, poof, they said, now we're going to take control of it. Here's Mike Pence, our vice president. The guy has no background in this at all, and he's in charge. And so this is a problem that's universal because all of a sudden it's a lot like we know that Sasha is a chess player. Okay, he's a good chess player.
But
Not a great one like me. Not a great one like me. But he's a good chess player. Okay, but
you given us an update about the collegial system. Nick, sorry. You given us an update about the collegial system, but you did not given your opinion. How do you like it? What actually has happened?
Well, you want my opinion?
Yeah, I want your opinion.
Okay, well, realize if you want my opinion, hey, Ankit, send him a retainer, and I'll give him my opinion. I mean, that's how I work, Abjit. I'm sorry, you want my opinion, you got to pay for it. Okay, but let's go to Sasha. If he's got a chess match going on, and your choice is to bring Magnus Carlsen, or you can bring Mike Pence to handle the chess program. Who are you going to bring to play chess?
For obvious reason,
Mike
Pence.
Of course.
He's
not Magnus Carlsen.
I mean, you know what? I want to tell you one thing. Even you know what? If you would give me a choice, Donald Trump instead of Pence, it would have been definitely Donald Trump. Because you see, in every aspect, whatever you are doing, to have a humor, to have aspect of fun is very important. Carlson is no fun. He's dry. He's okay, so he'll play a game or two here and there. But somebody like Trump or even Pence, they are entertainers.
I understand that, but I'm telling you, the top virologists in the world, or the top nephrologists, who I don't even know who they are. I bet no one in the panel knows who the top virologists and pathologists are in the world. We don't know who even they are, but I guarantee you they're not fun people. Okay, most of the people that are top in their field are really weird. And so the thing is, I'm just the way it is. Okay,
so is Carlson. So
okay, but those are the people you need to bring to the table for that particular problem. Okay, Magnus Carlsen. You want Magnus Carlsen to lead the chess charge. You want this weird pathologist that no one sees, who has a medical doctor. He's an MD, PhD who sits somewhere in Oxford, probably in some hut, who's one of the most miserable people you'll ever meet in your life. Okay, seriously, but knows everything about virology and pathology. I mean, seriously, and knows even what the solutions are or could be, and can actually tell you what. And the real problem is, Alexander, they're not going to mince words. You know, they're not going to say,
Right.
"Oh yeah, opening the economy is good." They'll tell you straight to your face, "That's the stupidest idea I ever heard." You know,
Oh,
like Bill Gates used to say.
you know who else doesn't mince words?
Yeah,
Gary Kasparov.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Right.
You know, I read a lot of interviews by Carlson.
Sure.
And Carlson, he doesn't really say anything, even
Yeah.
when he asks direct questions. Once he was asked why he stopped working with Gary Kasparov, because they worked together.
Okay. Okay. You brought Kasparov to the table. Let me tell you how well did he do in the political scene in Russia? Okay, he's the top chess player in the world back in that time. He got into politics. How did he do, Alexander, in politics?
Okay, he quit chess in 2005,
Yeah.
and at that time he was already involved in some politics in Russia. But you know what means politics in Russia, okay? I don't have to explain. So obviously he made no inroads. But I want to tell you something else. In Toronto, we have so-called monk debates. It's a several years old institution. You can find it in internet. It's very entertaining, very well structured debates system. And once, I don't remember, maybe 2-3 years ago, there was a debate. Roy Thompson Hall, it's the largest concert hall in Toronto, at 3,600 people. There was a debate between two panels. One of them, they had one Russian propagandist and one crazy Stephen Cohen, this professor, liberal professor from the United States. And on the other panel was Gary Kasparov and what's her name? Lise Applebaum, I think. She's a liberal writer. So now the question was, should West reapproach the Russia, or West should play hardball and get Russia on its knees? Now, before the debate started, there was a poll, a very quick express poll between all the participants, and the position of Stephen Cohen and the Russian guy, they had about 59%, and Gary Kasparov and Applebaum had only 41%. After debate, the same poll was taken. Gary Kasparov and Applebaum, they had 58%, and Putin's side, this Stephen Cohen, 42%. Okay, now you tell me if Gary Kasparov is a good politician or not.
Well, he's not a good Russian politician because he got booted out of Russia and lives in the United States. You know?
Well, for all practical purposes, Gary Kasparov lives in New Jersey. How
That's what I'm
he
saying.
can be a Russian politician?
Yeah, because the thing is, it didn't work out too well for him. Now, what is this thing from Canada? Who put this up?
So,
this is kind of interesting.
Nick, this is the list of ministers in Canada, and what are their professions and what kind of ministry they're handling. So, a minister of health in Canada is a doctor.
Right, good idea.
A minister of transport is an astronaut. Defense minister is a Sikh veteran.
Right.
A youth minister is under 45. Minister of Agriculture and Agri-Foods is a former farmer. Minister of Public Safety and Emergency is a preparedness, was a scout earlier.
Right.
Minister of Innovation, Science, Technology was a financial analyst. Minister of Finance is a successful businessman. Minister of Justice was a crown prosecutor and is the first nation's leader. Minister of Sports and Person with Disabilities is visually impaired Paralympian. Minister of Fisheries and Oceans and Canadian Coast Guard is Inuit. Minister of Science is a medical geographer with a PhD. And these are the titles we have, in Canada. So people who have the knowledge of that ministry, they are running the ministry in Canada. It's not happening around the world, but in India, we have a doctor who is a health minister.
Yeah.
Right. Well. See, that's what I'm saying, though, Ankit, is that there should be a group of a dozen of the top virologists and pathologists in the world that should be leading the discussions on COVID-19. okay, rather than the politicians. And the politicians should defer to the subject matter experts to give their opinions about this. Instead, we don't get that at all. All we do is we get politicians. We got to balance the economy with deaths. We got to do and you're getting filtered and bad information all over the world. And it is tough to get the top virologists and pathologists in the world together. But if the politicians had clout, they'd be able to do it. I mean,
let me ask you a question.
Yeah, go on, Alex.
If China can go to such extremes as to, for example, test 11 million people in the province of Wuhan,
yeah,
what other countries can do something like this? Nobody in the world. Nobody can do that. Even technologically speaking, it's impossible. And never mind the will to say to 11 million people, you're going to be tested the next 24 hours, stay home, we will come to you, and so on. And it's not a referendum. There's no debate whether it's feasible, whether it should be done or not should be done. They make a decision, done deal. Okay, nobody can do that.
Right.
So if China can do that to 11 million people, and for all practical purposes, I don't see why they can do it to 1 billion people for a practical purpose. They can do that just as well.
Sure.
It will take maybe a little bit longer, but they can do that. So why China then need cooperation with anybody in this world? Give me an example. Why? What's the benefits for China to do that?
Export. China depends on export
and import. And they like to import our technology. They import our technology, they develop it, and then they export the goods. You know,
China has everything. They have all technology available. They have all the manufacturing available to them. They have $1.5 billion people. They have trillions of dollars. They have the gold as the largest gold resources in the world. Why do they need to cooperate with anybody in this world? I just don't get it at all. I just don't get it. They
don't have oil.
Look. No, I'd like people to convince me. I want people to convince me that I'm wrong, that I don't understand anything. I want people to convince me, but I'm not getting anywhere. People are telling me China is horrible, China is this and that.
Okay,
just tell me, explain to me something.
Alexander, no oil. They can't run their stupid cars because they don't have oil. Not my problem. If you think about it, okay, you're in the middle of a bloody desert in the worst place
in the world. Factor anymore.
What?
Oil is not such an important factor anymore.
No, it isn't anymore. But for years it had been. So the thing is, they went around the world trying to acquire natural resources that they don't have.
Yes.
You know? I mean, they don't have oil. You could make the argument the U.S. I mean, frankly, we have a lot of stuff here. So why are we bothering with the rest of the world? I mean, in some respects, you can say we don't have to because we have oil, we have gas, we have food, we have housing, we have.
So here comes Donald Trump. That's his policy. Donald Trump doesn't need anybody. He wants to be United States.
For years, we haven't recognized the rest of the world. I mean, like I said, Malaysia just came on the map to me because Rana showed up. Otherwise, I wouldn't even know where the bloody thing was. You know.
I had to travel all the way to Malaysia to find out where it is. I had to travel there.
Okay, one thing I just want to add, because there is a leaderships and the expert, this type of question come, and politics also come.
Yeah.
Just I want to give example of Malaysia. Before this pandemic, I think few weeks ago, Malaysian government changed because of
I didn't know it changed. Like I said, Rana, we get nothing on Malaysia. So when you said, hey,
just few days ago. Yeah, okay. Just few days ago, before this pandemic, Malaysian government changed. Dr. Mahathir Mohamad is a very respectable man. I respect politicians, but suddenly government change, new government come. Then this pandemic start, and they have to do this lockdown. Okay, just few weeks, maybe 1-2 weeks. But how? It's a question. Maybe you can ask me how in this political turmoil they control this. COVID-19 and this thing very well.
Okay.
Issue is that I can give you one man example you can search on he is actually DG, Deputy General for Health. His name is Dr. Noor Hashim Abdullah. Dr. Noor Hashim Abdullah. He's a professional man. Okay, so Prime Minister come. So Tan Sri Muhyiddin, he's a very respectable man, and I think he's a dynamic politician. He give all of the responsibility to the professional people. He is the head of healthcare. Okay, Dr. Abdullah, he's a professional man. He's a head of healthcare, and we politicians give you all of the backup. You take decision. He do all of the controls like healthcare, medicines, everything. Every decisions come from Dr. Abdullah. Okay, he's a professional man. He's not a politician. Okay, so when he took over, like after this political turmoils, a professional people take the responsibility of his state. You can check from here, like 4-year kids to old people, everybody respect about Dr. Abdullah, and perhaps he's a top 3-4 doctors around the world. Nobody maybe know about Dr. Abdullah. So that is the question answer for politics. Like example, if you focus too much of politicians, you may lose your control, you may lose your positions. So better do work with the professional people who is expert. If I face any problem with the law, we have to focus on lawyers. If it's a time for doctor, researcher, give opportunity to doctor and researchers. If there is a situation for industrialist and the job employment, give opportunity to entrepreneurs. So yes, politics is very important, but in some point in a crisis moment you have to rely on professional people. And about this kind of lot of contract and agreement, I do work with Germany with and Russia for nuclear power plant. I do work with China for solar projects. I do India, even I do work, so I have some knowledge how these things happens. When feasibilities come, real things must need to be input, even it's a non-disclosure agreement. So it's not only emotion, we have to be professional. When situation comes, we have to be very professional. So that is the way of success of Malaysia. I just want to
that's the problem.
Discussing. I think Nicole said the right thing, that we have oil, we have this, and we have entire necessity which United States require. And why do we need to rescue another country? The same way you are telling that the work allocation which was given into two different politicians within Malaysia was very right. But my question was not on the focusing but to give him extra importance to politics. But my point was little different. We need to develop global neighborhood. At this stage of time, when you are talking about global neighborhood, then you are not going to know that the country which you are dealing with, the country who has a regular flight with your nation, country with whom you are trading, what they are doing inside their border, it is not known to you. The only thing which can bring is a global leadership. And how do you decide global leadership? If India or Asia or European Union and United States, they all agree to share a database of the global people, if before they fly, it is very easy to convince European Union. Once you convince European Union, you have convinced half of the world. Then the other side, if you have convinced Asia, then you have convinced half of the people on the globe. And if you have convinced United States, then you have covered entire globe. But problem would come that we do not have similar type of structure within countries. The election system and the other system which are not equal, all of them are not into same shape of democracy. How do we reach that consensus? That consensus need to grow on the world level. That what you are doing inside, what kind of R&D you are doing with your DNA or some other animal DNA, how world will get to know? Like coronavirus, this should not happen again. And if you want to make sure that this should not happen again, then you need to enter into business of different countries inside their boundaries, inside their borders. And when you will enter inside their borders, you will have resistance. There might be wars. They would not allow you to enter. There is no international organization who are allowed beyond the diplomatic willingness. And that to meet that willingness, we will have to create a consensus, and countries who are not agreeing to consensus, what would happen to them? As a cluster, we will have to say no to them. Don't trade with us, no flight with us, no relationship, no diplomatic relationship with us, if you are not giving transparency to media, research, natural resources, etc. to the globe. Yeah, Alexander wished to add something.
Alexander,
But I think
Okay, what I will say will be extremely controversial. I will not gain new friends, especially here on IBM TV.
from Russia.
But I will do it. I will
Right.
do it anyway. However, before I will do it, I want to tell you a well-known story about greatest American chess player and perhaps all world chess player, Robert James Fischer.
Bobby.
Many years ago, before he became actually world champion, he was already playing at world championship level. His strengths were incredible. And one popular magazine, I think Yugoslavian or even American chess magazine, Sport Illustrated, I forgot, somebody asked him about who he believed, but he was not world champion officially yet. So they asked him a question: who does he think is the strongest player in the world? Robert Fischer replied something like that: "It's so great to be modest, but I'm not going to hide the truth from the chess world. By far the strongest chess player in the world, it's me, Bobby James Fischer." That was his answer. Now, it's so nice. It's so nice to talk about transparency, about the friendship, about cooperation between all countries in the world. Never happened in the history of the civilization that everybody was cooperating with everybody, everybody is in love, and these people are helping that people. That never, ever happened. Why are you here dreaming about something what never happened? There is no proof that it can ever happen, and it's not going that way by all practical purposes. It's not there, and it's not going to be there. And furthermore, everybody likes to talk about that, but nobody really wants it because everybody cares about, first of all, himself, his family, his friends,
yeah.
his town, his country. And only there, they look around, who else is there? Oh, they're still alive. Oh my God. Come on, get real. Let's not talk nonsense here, please.
But there is one more thing, Abhijit, what said that if we create a global consensus and we leave out those countries, but you know that we have a lot of bilateral trade as well going around. So suppose we have a trade with a country, suppose, I mean, I can say any country, any neighboring country, they are not a part of the global consensus. Should we stop trade doing with them? Because they will be our neighbors. We can have new friends, but we can't choose our neighbors, and that's why you can't block it. I mean, in fact, if you know about what's happening with India and Pakistan and China and all other countries, but we are doing some kind of trade. If not with the government route, but we are privately, people are working and talking together and doing a lot of trades. So it's difficult to consensus and to plan things. But obviously, there should be a united body which will monitor everything and which will take a decision as a uniform committee. You know what happened in WHO today?
No.
Taiwan become an observer now. China wanted to block Taiwan, but Taiwan become an observer now as a separate country, and there are a lot of people supporting Taiwan. It never happened because you know what I mean, Taiwan and about Taiwan and China. So it's difficult because we have a lot of close bilateral relationship with Russia, with China, with a lot of countries. And if Russia will say that I don't want to be a part of that global consensus, we can't say no to Russia because it's all about friendship. And also, I mean, suppose if we say no as well, but I know Sasha, I will still deal with Sasha. I mean, if our countries are not talking to each other, and we have a global platform, we are on internet right now, so I have a lot of ways to contact and coordinate with Russia. And likewise, you know that a lot of Pakistani people are also working in India. They live in India, they work in India, they come to India. But it's not the case in if you talk about formally between governments. So I mean, I think Sasha and there is I would say I'm in between Abhijit's views and Sasha views that we have to come to a between picture and we have to think what we can do to create a global citizenship and how we can create transparency among our countries. That is more important. For that, we have to take some steps. There should be some guidelines. There should be something because that is what we are not doing, and we are not sharing the best practices. That's why it's all about the dollar note. Everyone wants to earn the dollar, and that is what we are doing right now. So we need to come up with a lot of practices and a lot of
that if it is saying that there is nothing wrong with this,
Let me remind you.
then people will slowly agree to this. Everyone has profit and loss at this stage of time. Economies, your work, your business, country, everyone is at loss. And if
Yeah.
we would not develop a resistance to stop the repetition of such incidences, then
Yeah.
I don't know how do we place this. I'm not saying that one country should get into affair with another country and they should involve into the internal affair, but
Yeah.
at least more power to organization like WHO who can
Yeah.
give you an early warning. This is very much required.
True. No, I
And
completely
Bill, I
agree.
think
WHO is not playing the role which they need to play. So as United Nations, and I think we can talk about other organizations as well. But that is why, because there is a politics in that organization as well. I don't know how they decide and who will run the office and things like that. But there is an internal politics going around, and you know that there are a lot of business words which we use it while doing the businesses, and I'm not sure what's going on because
Well, I
after
tell
the
you
office,
what's
before the office, there are a lot of things going around. But eventually, as Sasha said, that we are at a current situation where we become levelers of each and every country. Everything is on the same level, and we can restart and remodel our associations and economy and things like that. And I think we need to have some more guidelines. Yes, Rakeshji.
Yeah. I just drawing your attention to one headline, and I tend to agree with Abhijit on this. This was a headline which I read in an Indian newspaper, NDTV, and it was quoting a US diplomat saying that in the past 20 years, we've had 5 pandemics, all originating from China. This has to stop. I'm just quoting. This is not my opinion.
Yeah.
This has to stop. So in that point, I would certainly say, we do need to look at what Abhijit is saying quite seriously, because these global bodies need to be empowered to work for humanity. That is absolutely spot on.
But the thing is that we have 7.5 billion people. This is what I don't understand. 7.5 billion people, less than 1% control us. And yet we allow them to control us with their political own personal agendas. And that's what needs to end. And we had 2 young men on our show last week, podcasters that are not politically driven at all. But we asked that one question: what do you think would empower us a little bit better or make us a better nation, just a better nation? And they said to get rid of the current political infrastructure. We don't need one president anymore. Maybe we need a group of people. The thing to connect us globally, we need the people in office that can relate to each person globally. And that doesn't happen. It becomes a chip on the shoulder. It becomes a we're better than you attitude. We have to dissolve that. That needs to be dissolved. But we need to build the bridges. And, China has become a very dangerous place. But I have to ask myself about the pandemics. Could it be their own personal habits and lifestyles, right? We have to take a look at that. We talk about how do we beat this? Our immunity, our habits of washing our hands, maybe the way we change our clothes at the end of every day, whether we take our outer clothing off before we enter our home. The Japanese have had that for many, many years. So, more than many, many years, centuries. So, and I think I heard Abhijit talk about this earlier, that we have stop doing our normal practices of wearing layers of clothing and eating healthier and spiritual practices. And I think those change of habits have harmed us. I really do. They were put there in place for a reason. Just like I joke about the hoop skirt, right? And it keeps I think it was designed to keep people distant from you, right? That big hoop skirt could definitely work. The layers of clothing, maybe they were really put in place, maybe at first for a fashion statement, but enforced for health reasons, but further enforced for spiritual reasons, right? Because people will abide by spiritual purposes. So maybe they were really there for our health, to not spread diseases, when we layer our clothing a little bit better. So I agree. I think all of you are on the right guidance here, but I think there's a louder voice out there that's not being heard. If you think about it, 7.5 billion people, and we're treated as if less than 1% control us, and we allow it. I think we can pull it together. I just think it's going to take a stronger voice. And to address your thing on exactly. And I think to emphasize on Ankit's point of some things, I want you guys to be very careful. Both the WHO and the CDC, who are extremely well funded by all of our countries, withheld very important information under classified documentation stamping. That should never be allowed. If you are a World Health Organization or like the CDC, where you are there for the people, there should be nothing classified ever. There is no intellectual property that should ever be established out of any establishment that is intended for the world. Okay, no classified information whatsoever, nothing. And yet they had classified information. That should be disbanded. The people who did that should be fired and removed from office. And there should be no intellectual property developed in any of these entities, not when taxpayers' money pays for them. So I'm going to get off my soapbox, but you guys are heading down the exact conversation that needs to be happening as a global means, but none of the leaders want this to happen. Okay, that's divide and conquer. Divide and conquer. And you have to ask yourself, what do the leaders really want to gain by this? It amazes me how certain leaders become best friends, or are they really best friends, right? But it's all about that political power and what they're trying to gain and what they're trying to do. And I just think we, as a group of people, we're going to have to establish something that pulls it together, right? Just like if you just want technical standards for the globe, there's got to be a means to derive certain global standards for the globe, so that certain people aren't inventing things that don't work with other things. I always found that to be very irritating as an engineer, when we would set global standards and then everybody would go proprietary. I'm like, why are you going proprietary when we need to work together? Oh, well, because everybody, like Apple, everybody will just buy an Apple. No, that's not the way anything should be done. Many years ago, we had laws in our country that prevented companies from becoming monopolies. These laws were strongly enforced, but those laws have slowly dissipated. Okay, where's Nick when I need him? Dissipated over the years because of money and politics. So where they would not allow one particular utility company to encompass a whole state, so that you could have small individual utility companies, and utility meaning not just power, but telephone as well, right? And water. So that it wouldn't monopolize, and you can kind of mandate and control how much they charge you and how much they charge the public. Well, over the years, they just ignored the laws that have existed, and they allowed certain companies to buy out other companies and become one. Like all of our power in North Carolina now comes from one power company. It should have never happened. The utility companies, like the phone companies, they're allowing them to monopolize the market. So they're allowing one to eventually own all in certain states. In the United States, for many, many years, one phone company could never, ever encompass a whole state, ever. And that's slowly starting to be allowed to happen. And the only reason why that's being allowed to happen is certain politicians are either becoming board members of certain companies, and they're allowing the mergers. And I watched this happen in my own state. I tried to fight it along with other people, but they were just too big, too much money, and too powerful. So again, and then the people complain, why is this happening to me? Well, because you didn't stand up and speak. And that's the biggest problem right there. 7.5 billion people don't care enough to stand up and speak about the problem. They would rather sit down and whine and complain about, we don't have, it costs too much. So there's your problem. That's where it lies. And we're the middle. We're the ones who say, why not? Why can't we work as a globe? Why can't we work together? Why can't we build together and build standards together? And that's because, as Nick and I started out this conversation today, which I didn't intend it to go this way, is it's the top 1% who controls it all. And we got to change that. And I think Rakesh mentioned something at one time. The middle class was actually the driving force of the United States. The middle class, own the majority of the assets. That no longer exists. And what China has been doing over the past 30 years while we've been lazy, greedy, whining, and complaining, and I'm not talking about we here, but the 7.5 billion people, they've been buying up everything. And, as we know, they don't care about their people. They don't care about their people. And the data shows it because all of the pandemics and the diseases have been coming out of their country, which means what? Their health control systems. Absolutely, they're wrong. Also, I think a lot of the diseases and viruses are manipulated, man-manipulated. And I think that they allow their labs to do these things. I think there are a lot of labs over there that develop all the main viruses that we're having to fight. And I think that they just get lazy with it, or maybe they want to spread it. I don't know. Maybe these are test beds. But as we've witnessed, each time it gets worse. And this locked down the whole world. And you know what? This should be waking us up, not making us argue at a leadership level. But what I don't understand, and it's really making me sick on a daily basis, is we have data to support how we can get past this, and we're not using it. Now, Hong Kong is a good footprint. I don't care what anyone says. They're making it happen. Unfortunately, other countries, it spread too fast, so we have to contain it, right? So do the necessary steps to contain it and get it under control. But Hong Kong has yet to close down. They still continue to operate. And granted, they've had little flare-ups, but I think they get them under control. So why not take a look at that footprint? And why don't we do it as a globe? That's what I got,
Naturally, you follow best practices. I don't know why they don't follow it in public life,
I mean, there's enough data out there to support good practices without shutting down, and you didn't have the major pandemic. That's,
I think lots of people, Kim, they think it is not possible because it never happened. Those people should also understand that impact like COVID-19 never happened. Even into World War I and World War II, trains were not stopped. There was no standstill like this, which has happened now globally. So if something which not happened or never happened, if we believe cannot happen in future also, it's a wrong thought process to follow. And not as Indian only, but from one side of globe, entire globe is thinking about the same thing, that what if it happens again? It's not possible to lose such people again and again. After, I think Rakesh said in last 10 years, China has given 4 or 5 pandemics. This is what he read in the newspaper. If it is going to happen again and again, how are we going to stop it? And if we are not giving strength, we are not compromising with our own interest, then it is going to happen again. Somebody would do some R&D and it will go out of the hand, and then we all as a globe will pay price for this, which we never did. My country was not at a fault. We were not doing any research at Wuhan.
Right.
So why are people dying in our country? I have right to stop things at my border. And these rights I cannot exercise with fight or breaking diplomatic relationship. A global body would have to come and tell each country that you have to fall in this line. If you are not falling in this line, the better you become self-dependent. Do not trade, do not have flight, do anything which can give a harm, which you can transport from your place to their place. This would come very soon. And the grace and the anger which is being created after this COVID-19 is also going to hit back to China. So what they have done, I don't know, it's a strategy, it was a conspiracy or what, but if they have done it with any wrong intent, then they are going to pay for it.
I agree. I think it's about the knowledge that we're going to have about what happened, why, but the intent. At the end of the day, I think it's going to be driven from the intent. I don't know that we'll ever know the truth about this particular pandemic. I think there has been a lot of cover up, and a lot of our answers have been removed. And we'll just have to pursue on. Again, I think you had said this earlier. It's at this point we need to say, how do we prevent or take measures for the future pandemics, not even prevent them. I don't think we are. And one of the doctors last week said that they're just going to come because the earth has changed. And this might not be